You are now listening to Carlie's Couch with Lextopia
and CC Fierce. In this week's episode, we talk about noticing whenever you're in alignment and allowing things to flow. Hello.
Welcome to Carlie's Couch. Thanks for listening to episode 80-something. We are almost to 100, which makes almost a couple years, I guess, this fall for Carlie's Couch.
That's exciting. It's every time I think about, every time I'm like, okay, typing in stuff for the episode, I'm like, man, 80-something? Like, this is 80 whatever weeks straight. It's like, man, that's pretty consistent.
Do you feel like you've never done anything that consistent before?
Outside of working out, probably not.
Oh, that's good. If working out is something you've done that consistent, that's good.
So probably this and working out have been the main consistent things in my life.
That's good. Well, hopefully it is bringing good fruits to your life, Carlie, and to the listeners for sticking with us this long. Or if you are new to listening to Carlie's Couch and you want to get to know more about us, you can always start from the beginning or listen to earlier episodes that you haven't heard before. And for those who are listeners who listen every week, especially if you love the podcast, if you appreciate the episodes, we want you to give us a 5-star review on iTunes and leave us comments. Shout out Earl, who leaves his comments on the site. You can leave them on the site. You can leave them on Instagram, Twitter, and of course in a review. So appreciate you guys and all of your feedback so far.
Yeah, y'all at the bomb. And if you haven't subscribed for our newsletter, because we also send those out, just if you just can't get enough Carlie's Couch, we have all kinds of stuff for you. So with each episode topic, we try to think of things that interest us, things that are happening in our lives, or a mix of all of those. And something that's really been on my heart lately is thinking about being in alignment. Like, are the things that I'm doing in alignment, and noticing in my life when things feel really easy and then when they feel like I'm forcing them. And so that's something I kind of wanted to talk through today, is to see, you know, what does flow look like? What does it feel? And what does it look like when you're in alignment? And then maybe what are some ways like you've noticed, or, you know, we've noticed or experienced when it's not, and when it feels like you might be forcing something, and maybe some things to kind of draw that on back.
Do you feel like recently your life has been in alignment for this to be something that you said you're excited about, or like what is it about it?
Yeah, I think I made alignment. I pick a word or a couple words every year. And in 2016, my word was alignment. Mm-hmm. And so since then I've been, if it doesn't fit this big vision for my life, like if I don't feel like it's in alignment, I'm not going to do it. Cause I get excited about things and used to take stuff on, even if it didn't fit with what I want to do ultimately. Mm-hmm. And so I realized I had to be more disciplined and not do that. And so since then, alignment's just something I've been focused on. But recently there's been so much in my life that's just flowing and that feels good and looks good. And so I notice more when I feel like I hit a wall and when it's not flowing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, then I guess that's not in alignment if it's not flowing.
And what do those things tend to be? Do they tend to be things from the past that are trying to see if, like, can you still do them, or do you still want to do them? Or have you noticed, like, which things seem like they might be more of like a hard stop now?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like one category where I've recognized it, but one is like recently in like the changing of a relationship, like very drastically shift. And then also in work, like with the pandemic and everything being shut down, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's not that. And like the water in the river, like it's going to flow somewhere else. And so just noticing where it flows. Like you talk about that a lot, like noticing like what people come to you for and what your strengths are. And so it's just been very apparent as of late because of the drastic stop.
And then one more thing before getting into kind of our thoughts on flow is, are we defining flow and alignment as the things that we control? Because I would say, you know, I wouldn't say you're not in flow just because the pandemic happened, because that's not necessarily have anything to do with you. You know what I mean? So like considering that when we're talking about flow, for me, I would say that we're thinking about the things that you're kind of controlling in the alignment of your life, regardless of, I guess, all these different obstacles or things happening, but not necessarily like outside obstacles stopping you, but more so how you're making the decisions to kind of navigate through.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And so for me, like when I think about flow, one of the first thoughts I get is from the 7 spiritual laws of success, where one is the law of least effort. And that says, like, you know, grass doesn't have to try to grow, it just grows. Birds don't try to fly, they just fly. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when you're in a place where you feel like you're not having to put so much effort into things, and yet you feel at peace, calm, successful, whatever it is, then that's the good space that you should want to be in. And so for me, when I think about alignment and flow, it's like, man, everything's just, lining up perfectly, and, things are working out, and it feels like, my moves are smooth and things are growing. And it tends to be affiliated with when things are going well according to what I want to happen or what I have planned.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not going to reiterate everything you said. I will add on top. Like, I think it's those moments that you can get lost in that don't drain you. And maybe that's more so like how you know that you're in flow. So for me, describing it is like, you're in flow when you lose track of time, when you're completely immersed into what it is that you're doing. Like whenever time flies by, whenever you just feel energized, whenever you feel full, whenever I don't know a better way to say it. Like you just like, I feel it.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you're in flow, that's a sign that things are aligned. So I don't want us to necessarily use those two things interchangeably, because I think there's a little bit of difference to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you feel in flow, or when you're in flow, you're just not having to exert so much. And when things are lined up for you, the right people in your life, the right opportunities in front of you, or maybe I should stop saying right, but opportunities, people, things in front of you that are moving you in that direction, then that's when you're kind of there.
Mm-hmm. What does it feel like for you whenever you're in flow?
When I'm in flow, I feel clear. I know we've mentioned this before, kind of another conversation, but when you feel clear and you feel confident because you're clear. So, things are more confident why you're doing what you're doing, why I'm calling you, why I'm working on a thing, etc. I think that's the biggest thing, that there's a clarity around you and what's going on at the time, and that you're open to what's happening in this space. And I think that it's also peaceful and calm. So not necessarily excited for me, or not necessarily like you're down, but that you just feel really good. Like you're like, man, like just everything just feels good right now.
Yeah, everything kind of clicks. For me, it's everything clicks. Like I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I feel like the right things are happening. Like it feels in time. I've noticed that I'm more confident whenever I feel in flow. And we talk about things that we can control. That's something, I can control. If I'm attached to a version of my life that's not happening in the moment, that can definitely cause some insecurities and some struggles. But like, just allowing yourself to be present. I guess that's another thing for me, is like being in flow is being completely present with what's going on.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. And so how do you know if a person that you meet today, or if something that somebody asks you to do, how do you know if that's in alignment?
With people, I think it's different. I don't think you might not know automatically, like when you meet them, like running into somebody at Starbucks, or hopefully not now running into people at Starbucks, but you might not know. But from like one of those first conversations, they might say something like, oh, I'm a marketer. Maybe you were looking for that on your team. You're like, oh, that might click, but you don't know. I think you have to have a couple conversations with people to figure out. But I would say for opportunities, if it is in alignment with my vision. So I've sat down and I have goals, but does it fit in my overarching vision for my life and for how I want to spend my time and what I have on my plate right now? Like, is this opportunity taking away too much time from everything else that I'm doing? Mm-hmm. Is it just something cool that I kind of want to do, but it doesn't really fit with my goals? Like, and that's kind of how I evaluate what opportunities I do take and not.
Mm-hmm. Similarly, I would view something as in alignment when it fits in with an intention, because when I have particular intentions at that point, for example, I'm really defining like, all right, what do I want this company to be? Who do I really want to work with? And then defining that and saying, well, I really just want to work with people who care about giving back, or who care about this or that. And then to turn around and meet somebody who is just that. And now they're expressing that they need your services. Now, to me, that's an example of things being in alignment. And so it's at that point, it's like, all right, are you going to move forward or not? But I think when I have particular intentions, my eyes are open to seeing things in those different areas, to where now, oh, does that help this or not help that? And you pay more attention and see like those opportunities coming up that seem like they just happen to fit right what you were looking for.
Have you always been that intentional, like even thinking about like your customers and the people that you wanted to work with?
I guess not, but there's always been an intention. It just changes. Maybe at first, if you're a new business, your intention might just be like, I just need to get clients, or I just need customers. And then as you grow, or you're able to, you realize that you'll be more successful the more you fine tune things. And I think that's the same kind of with life, like with your goals, with your intentions. It's like walking into the grocery store without your list versus walking in with your list. Like, you still can get stuff come out and you may have everything you need, but you're spending way more time in the store when you don't have a list, for example, versus when you go in, boom, 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 because you know what you're looking for. And so I think it just directs you to cutting out the fluff when you're intentional. And I think it's just something you're afforded to do, that you should be intentional about all those steps, but I haven't always. But when I have the space to focus on that, or let that be something to work on or to be intentional about, then I will.
I like that a lot. And you're saying planning, not planning, but being intentional helps cut out that fluff. How much of being in flow and being in alignment do you think is planning versus just happening?
I think the main part that is based upon planning is your decision to want to get better at a skill, or your intention of you saying, like, I want to do X, Y, Z. At that point, it's being in flow, or things happening to, once you've decided that, like, yes, now you have a skill. But from there, it's like, all right, things have to happen for you to get certain opportunities. You have to talk to the right people. You have to do the right things, etc. So your planning can only get you so far, I guess is what I'm thinking. And at a certain point, now you're also starting to waste your time by planning, or you're closing off other opportunities by planning too hard.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And especially as someone who's like kind of not skeptical on planning, that just really hasn't been my thing. Like most of the time I feel like things are going to work out if my intentions are good. But I think planning is really important in the sense to be ready for those opportunities. Like when you are in alignment and you are in flow and you do meet those customers, or you do meet those people for friendships or relationships or whatever, you want to make sure that, you know, all your bases are covered and that you've done the work in order to be able to service that client or to be able to accept that opportunity.
But also when it comes to planning, how do you know? Like, you can't even really know if, you know, what just happened is because of your plan, and what just happened is because of, you know, just the person saw you. They might not have known anything about you, but they put you in a position. Or it may just be like that could have happened any other way and you don't know. So I also think that you have to be careful to, like, go back on your narratives and put too much value in, like, certain things that you did, because you don't know. So you can't say, like, well, is this aligned, or I feel in alignment, because really, and this kind of goes back against everything we were saying earlier, but I didn't want to get it too deep too early, but really, you know, who's to say what's your alignment and what's not? Because even in your tough situation, that can be alignment for what's coming up or what's going on. And so really alignment is you feeling okay and accepting your present moment. So there's no real like, oh, I feel in alignment, or you do feel in alignment. But if you don't feel in alignment, I feel like it's more so you need to assess your relationship with what's going on right now. And now you have to remember, like, oh, this is a valley, or this is a part of it, or your perspective, or whatever. Because then in the future, you know how when it's like, oh man, now I'm a rock star, and it's like, I remember that time I was homeless, and you know, this guy walked by and saw me playing my guitar, and maybe you turn into a star. But like now it sounds like, oh, cool, synchronicity, alignment. But in that moment, you didn't feel like it was fucking alignment, like when you was homeless. So I think that's the whole key to it, is that, you know, it's every moment and just your relationship with it.
I love that so much, just because if you've ever had a real conversation with me, I most likely have said synchronicity at least twice, just because it's probably my favorite word and one of my favorite things.
Yeah, you really just like saying that word.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing ever. But I think a lot of it is just being okay with where you are, with how you are, with who you are. And in my head, I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and that there are no accidents, even the bad stuff, but it's like up to you to figure out if it's in alignment. Like, and so I think you can use alignment as maybe a North Star, like guiding you, like, okay, this opportunity doesn't fit with any of the goals I said I wanted.
Flow too, more so. So like, remember, we're kind of like, they're kind of a little different, and maybe that's it, where it's like alignment, you should be able to consider each moment being in alignment, but there is, like, when you're in flow, you are in flow. There's a thing about that, and that's where you're not having to put too much effort. That's when you're, you know, in your zone, when things are like together. And I think that is a thing to still be in flow, where you've done what you can do to get to that moment, and now everything's like, this is your time to shine. So I think that there's still, you know, like, even in this convo, everything that we've said so far makes sense, kind of in alignment with both of those terms.
Synchronicity. No, I'm just kidding, kind of. But yeah, and I think that just being more aware of yourself and how you feel when it comes to certain opportunities or people or things are guiding stars. And that's kind of why I wanted to have this discussion, not only because I love it, but also because I think it's been really helpful for me and been more apparent because I'm at this deeper level with myself, I guess, now that I'm able to realize when I might be trying to force something or when I'm like really stuck on something instead of like, okay, well, maybe that's not where my focus should be, even if I want it to be. And even if I think it's in alignment, if I'm trying to force something, that is a big sign for me that it's not right in the moment.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. So how can you learn to be in flow or to feel like you're in alignment? How can you teach that to yourself if you constantly maybe feel more of like you're in a struggle?
I would say, well, alignment I think is easier to teach because there could be steps like in my head, like there's like, okay, so look at, your goals, like look at where you want to be, your vision for your life, like is what you're doing in alignment to help you get there. Could this be a step? If it's not, then maybe you have to question what steps you're taking. Is this person in alignment with what I want in a partner? No. Okay, well maybe you should think about that before moving forward, etc. But flow, I think the lesson is to just try to notice, and maybe that's where you start is journaling and just noticing when you feel clear, when you feel really confident, when you feel like, for me, it feels like $1,000,000 sometimes. Like I just am in flow, like my time flies. I love doing these things, and it's not necessarily a passion, but also it's aligned with my gifts. So like when I'm speaking, when I'm coaching, I love those things. And those are moments of flow for me. And so maybe going through and looking at your daily routine or things that you really enjoy that aren't a part of your daily routine, that could be flow for you.
Mm-hmm. I think it was in the book Design Your Life where they talked about flow frequently, and you're supposed to journal the things you're doing every day. And at the end of the week, I think, as you're doing them, you put a number, I think, to it, like 1 to 10 or something like that, about if you felt like in flow. No, if you felt in flow, and a number of like how much you like the task or something. It was something like that. But I think it was an interesting way just to pay attention, to your point, to what you're doing and where you are most in the zone, because perhaps it makes more sense to change your day around so that you're more focused on those types of tasks to get further, because maybe that's where you really are strong. My notes that I had on teaching and learning how to feel more in flow and to be more in alignment are, one, practicing acceptance. So if we're thinking about steps, one is, and this is from Deepak too, but one is with acceptance, it's, today I'm okay with what happens today, or I'm okay with what this person, or in the moment saying that, or just at all points being okay in the moment, because when you accept the moment, like we said, that's when you're feeling in alignment. Another is taking personal responsibility, because when you take personal responsibility for what's going on or for your moment, you take it away from your circumstances, the power from your circumstances, and you're more likely to actually transform that into something. And so that transforms your moments into something a little bit more powerful, into something that can feed your intentions, like Carlie was saying, and your goals that you have. And then another one I would say is practicing defenselessness. And I think that a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to explain ourselves, or if somebody says something, it's like, no, not that. I meant it this way. Or, always having to feel like you have to defend why or how you did something. And I feel like when you're doing that, you're fighting against the moment as well. And so it's when you find yourself kind of struggling against the moment, or kind of going against what's happening at the time, that's usually a point to stop and kind of think about it, and then just trying to let it flow, or like let it just happen around you.
I love all of those. Lex over here is like a Buddha, because it's like suffering is the resistance to what is. Mm-hmm. That's literally the root of suffering. And it's funny because I wasn't having the best day. I'm not going to say I had a bad day. I was not having the best day yesterday. And we were talking, and like all of these things are like things that would have helped me bring that back down and become more present. And so I guess that's pretty much the biggest lesson that being in flow has taught me, is not forcing anything and kind of accepting where things are and being okay with that. Because even if I'm not okay with where I am in the moment, that does not change where I am in the moment. And if I learn to accept it, like she said, I can own my power. And so instead of being a victim, I can be the person with the power to make the changes, to accept it, or to, be sad for a little bit and then keep it moving. So not forcing anything and really accepting it.
And I would say a lesson that I learned from being in flow, or learned from learning about flow, would be that we tend to be the main reasons why we're complicating our own lives. And so, it's like, why are you trying to create tensions with different things? Why are you making things harder than they need to be, more complex, when it's okay for it to be easy, or it shouldn't feel like so difficult. And it's okay to not, for things to not be difficult.
I like that a lot. Since my lesson was not forcing things, life gives us challenges, right? Sometimes. And sometimes I think they're designed to help test us and help to hone our skills and sharpen us and help us push to the next level. But also sometimes they are signs that they're like red flags and closed doors for reasons. And so for you, what's the difference between like when you're forcing something versus like pushing through?
That's a question that I actually ponder a lot. Like one of my philosophy questions I'm always thinking about, because it's like, we always see so much around effort, you're not trying hard enough, or work harder, or even faster, like all of it smarter, all of it's still the same thing, like do something else, do something more. But then it's like, all right, but also if there's this, principle of least effort and things shouldn't feel hard, like what does that mean? Like, should you be a quitter, or is it quitting, or is it just stopping because that's not for you? How do you know? And a thought that I ended up getting to today when I was thinking about this is that you're forcing it if you're at a point where you've done your part, and that whatever those results are aren't dependent on you. But I think that, when you're in a space where you need to just push your own mental and push your own barriers that you're putting on yourself, and your own limits that you're putting on yourself. And by that, I don't mean like, oh yeah, I could work 80 hours a week, because sure you can technically, but I do mean before you complain about like, oh man, I'm kind of behind, I haven't answered these emails. But if you look at your hours, you really only did like a couple hours a day type thing. Or you're complaining about that while also spending time doing other things and just not being real with yourself. And so I think things like that are the push through, is pushing through your own mental barriers, pushing through your own kind of limitations to that point to say, all right, you know what, I need to try to get at least 4 hours a day or something like that, right? It doesn't have to be crazy, but I think, when sometimes the results are on you, I think whatever you're most upset with yourself, which for us might be like our follow-up or how much we did today or whatever, those things I feel like we know, like when we're doing those well, that's when other people see, and that's when other people call us for opportunities and stuff like that. So that's what it's based on. So that is the things to push through.
I think that's a great outlook that I hadn't thought about. And I love that it's one of your philosophy questions. You and Jay are two of my favorite philosophers in my life. Shout out to him in China. But for me, I think of a very physical thing, and that's like working out. So the difference between forcing something and pushing through. So if I'm just tired, and I only said I was going to run a mile, but I'm halfway through and I'm just tired, like nothing hurts, I'm not dying, I'm like, man, and I quit, like that's a moment where I could have pushed through, versus if I'm trying to like lift a certain thing of weights, or if I'm trying to do sprints and something hurts, like I just feel like my body can't do it, like with my body awareness, like that's a thing, like, oh, I'm trying to force it for my ego. Why? Like, why do you need to do that extra sprint if your ankle's hurting and, you are just healing? Why do you need to do those things? And, or even if you are trying to learn, like couch to 5K or whatever you're trying to do, maybe you walk the last half of the mile. Like, what are you trying to prove? So looking back at your intentions. And I think that has helped me realize sometimes when I might be trying to force things, like when I'm in my ego, or when my intentions are, when I'm trying to force things to look like how I want them to, or how I envision them, versus just being present and pushing through with what I can.
So with stuff like the running the marathon, for example, and you're like, oh man, my ankle's locking up. So is that forcing it, you're saying, if you keep trying to go? Instead of just being like, you know what, this is where I should stop?
I think there's a line. So there is a line where you can push it. And I don't even know how to explain that because I've been doing sports for so long, but there's a line where I know I'm just like being lazy or I'm tired and I can push versus hurting. Like if you're ever working out and you have a sharp pain, stop. Like there's no reason to push through. Please stop before you hurt yourself. There's no pride in
it's recognizing like what's the pain coming from maybe. And kind of similar to mine too. It's like what's the pain coming from? Is the pain coming from your ego or is the pain coming from like your body telling you to stop or something that's not like healthy or like from fear or whatever, I think there's different spaces that might come from that let you know which one it is. But we did an episode too about when to quit, right? Yeah, so go back to our episode on when to quit because we did have a full discussion about that, and I think that is just as important, if not more important sometimes, than having your intentions about what you want to do and on where you want to go. Then also being able to pivot and stop and move and see other things. One thing that we didn't touch on as much in this is that alignment doesn't necessarily have to mean you getting from this point that you're at to this point that you've been drawing out. Just because you've been drawing it for 10 years or making your plan or whatever, your alignment might not even be that at all. And so I think it's also making sure that you're open to what life actually has for you because then maybe you'll feel more in alignment than when you're like struggling against this plan.
And holding on to that attachment of it like looking like this, and this, when life really looks like this sometimes and we don't even know where it goes. Letting go of that attachment is really tough. That's been like the hardest thing for me. My first day of yoga teacher training, they're like, what do you want to learn? I was like, to let go of all attachment. They were like, that's enlightenment. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's what I'm here for. Still working on that. But just thinking about, why you are so attached to that particular client, relationship, job, body, image of yourself, whatever it is, and, being okay with where you are, but also pushing through. And I'm from Oklahoma, so know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Country song.
This week, we want you to hit us on social media at Carlie's Couch, at CC Fierce, Lextopia, at Carlie Carpio. Let us know what you thought about the episode. Let us know your thoughts on being in alignment. Do you feel like when you're in flow or what that thing is that you're doing when you're in flow? Do you feel like life is in alignment? And if not, now that you've listened to this conversation, do you feel like you can change that with a perspective point of view? Or, what is it that's blocking you from feeling like you're in alignment? So kind of answering those questions. And our question of the week this week is free will real or is it just an illusion?
I think free will is real.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
Do you think free will is real or do you think it's an illusion?
Why or why not?
As in an illusion would mean that what?
That we don't really, actually have free will.
Yeah,
like predestination
is in your cards.
Like it doesn't matter what I do, I'm always going to end up right here. Whichever way I take. What do y'all think?
Let us know. And thank you for listening to Carlie's Couch. We will see you next week.
Bye, y'all.